If you are a teacher, parent, administrator, student, and/or anyone who loves reconnecting children with nature, and you want to figure out how to cultivate learning gardens and nature-based curriculum, then this is the podcast, the Outdoor Classrooms podcast. My name is Victoria Hackett. I am the founder of Outdoor-Classrooms.com and the Secret Gardens Nature Classes. I love witnessing the magic that happens when children are playfully learning outdoors. Observing the return of wonder and curiosity when children are interacting with nature is pure magic. This is the podcast that is going to help you capture children's interest and give you not only inspiration, but some real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to use the outdoor space, your outdoor space, as a teaching tool, so you can enlighten the playful learning experience for young children. Welcome to our Outdoor Classrooms community. Hey there, it's Victoria. We are going to dive into this episode in 1 second because it's so good. But before we do, I just want to ask you, did you know that I have an Outdoor Classrooms membership? Because it's the one thing that I am so excited about right now. It's called The Circle. This is a group of such amazing women and a few men, and I created it because it's what educators need. We need to surround ourselves with people who help us stay true to our identity as educators, who support the outdoor classroom movement, and who elevate our children's spirits, because we are the 5 people we spend the most time with. To solve our outdoor classrooms problems, we need to be with the people we can completely be ourselves with. Not only do we need to raise ourselves as educators, but we also don't need to be flawless parents and educators or take ourselves too seriously. That is the Circle membership. This is the space where you will feel so loved and so seen, if that is what you are looking for in your life and in your teaching practice. Just by being in this group, you will have the impression that you are developing into the educator and the person that you truly are. Every single week, there is something to tap into. Live Zoom sessions with me that are seasonal masterclasses, sessions with me that are Q&A and round tables. You are also going to have access to the Outdoor Classroom Tour and Talks from all over the world. We also have a book club in our community. Also, it's month to month, so you are going to want to check it out. So it's just a monthly commitment. I think you'll soon realize that this is something you've been looking for a long time. So if you want to check it out, go to www.outdoor-classrooms.com/circle-membership and you can join us. I am so excited to be introducing Victoria Zablocki. She is a certified elementary teacher turned outdoor educator with over a decade of experience in teaching and coaching teachers. She is passionate about making science approachable, digestible, and enjoyable. Victoria's mission is to nurture the whole child through innovative science education, with a vision of inspiring elementary teachers to make science a priority. She empowers educators to use nature as a dynamic classroom to meet curricular needs and to foster a love for learning. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed it. Without further ado, Victoria Zablocki. I'd love to have you tell us a little bit about how you came to be, and let's just dive right in.
Awesome. So my name is Victoria Zablocki, and I originally got my BS from Central Michigan University, which is where this whole journey started. I wanted to go for elementary school, and then when I was almost done with my degree, I learned that I couldn't teach the way I wanted to in general public schooling. And so I started working at a nature center as a camp counselor over a summer, and I just absolutely fell in love with outdoor education. And so fast forward, I ended up accepting a full-time position at that nature center, and I got to blend my love of teaching elementary students with outdoor education, which was everything that I didn't even know I wanted, but then ended up dreaming for. And so in that position, I actually got to coach a local school district by helping them develop a custom nature curriculum. And so then I got to work in the classroom with them. I got to help them develop outdoor lessons. And I also got to teach with them or for them at least once a week as on-the-ground professional development. So I worked through that for about 10 years. And now I'm currently staying at home with my children, but I'm still spending time developing teachers through a podcast and through some different resources that I sell online and a blog. So I'm still putting that love and that passion towards helping teachers.
That's amazing. So I want to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to be trained as a teacher, and you are a trained teacher, certified, and to go as you graduate from that chapter of your life and then go into the schools to teach? What was that like? And not having known about this nature-based world over here. So what was that like? And then realizing after all that training that you couldn't teach the way you wanted to teach. What was that like?
Yeah, it wasn't too far off from what I was trying to do anyways. So I found myself trying. I really wanted to teach thematic studies, and that's not everyone's favorite thing because it requires so much work. So you have to be able to take this math concept and this science concept and this literacy concept and put it together into a package. And that's a lot of extra work. And so I found myself frustrated not being able to do that. And so I would try to integrate things where I could, but that's not necessarily what your grade level wants to do. And so the expectation is that you do that. And so with the Nature Center, I found the freedom of being able to teach children in the authentic way that I knew that they could teach the best or learn the best. And so it was kind of a no-brainer when the full-time position opened up because it provided me that opportunity to just go for the passion because I knew I wanted to teach thematic studies, and then nature turned out to be the perfect thematic study that I didn't even know existed. So moving from what I dreamed of to nature was a very easy step. Moving out of the traditional classroom also was an easy step because, again, I had that passion and I didn't have a way to fulfill that passion. So it was a pretty easy transition to move from the traditional classroom into the nature-based education, just making sure I knew kids learn a certain way and I wasn't able to teach that way. So I wanted to provide them what they needed.
And did the nature piece, was that something that you kind of fell into, or when you found this incredible job that seemed to fit where you were at that time? Or did you discover it when you arrived?
So when it was a little bit of both. So when I was a child, I have 3 siblings. And so my parents couldn't afford to send us to too many camps. And so I really wanted to go to the Nature Center camp when I was a child, and I couldn't. But as an adult over the summer, I could be a counselor. So it's kind of like getting to go to camp. So when I started there as a camp counselor, it provided me something that I had always wanted. But then at the same time, it opened up that door for me of thematic studies. And I have an integrated science major. So the science aspect of nature, it spoke directly to my heart. I was so excited and so happy to be able to talk about seasonality and all the animals and the plants and things. And then to see how that could fulfill the standards of students around me, perfect fit. It was the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're there and you're developing this curriculum. And can you tell us a little bit about how you did that and how you created this robust curriculum for teachers and for yourself and now for other educators? Especially, I guess you're focused on science. Is that correct?
Yeah. So when I did work with the district, we had a program when I worked at the Nature Center where a local district wanted to fulfill their science standards using nature. So in Michigan, I'm in Michigan, we follow the next generation science standards. And so I helped them develop a scope and sequence through like 3 steps, essentially. So my process for developing scope of sequence is the first thing is to look at your science standards. So if we talk about like kindergarten as an example, using the next generation science standards, what I did is I took and broke them down into themes. So the physical science, they look at pushes, pulls, and forces. And then life science, they look at plants and animal needs. And then earth and space science, they talk about animals and their interactions with ecosystems, and then weather and severe weather. And so then the next thing that we did is after we had our themes, we actually took those and connected them to what was happening in nature.
Oh,
So yeah, so when you connect it to what's happening in nature in real time, then you're giving those students that authentic experience that's place-based and super rich. So we enhanced their understanding and provided true learning experience in experiential and impactful ways by working our curriculum around what's happening in nature right now. And again, it's a more difficult way of organizing your curriculum because you're jumping from this standard to that standard instead of completing one unit at a time. But
mm,
the experiences are more natural, and then they also have context, which is really important for memory-based learning. And the students can think back to what they did and how it connected to nature, and they'll have a better understanding and a better recall with that. So it's a little more difficult, just the setup part of it. But it's, like I said, it's more experiential and place-based, which is they're finding more and more research about how impactful that is. So if we go back to the kindergarten example, and so what I did is I looked for things that can be taught during certain seasons. So when you think about the animal needs standard, it's best to talk about different groups of animals because they have different needs and how they survive. So in Michigan, we can experience birds and mammals any time of the year, so that could be placed anywhere. But we have our best opportunity to experience insects in the fall and then also the end of the school year. So what I would do is I would schedule the insect study in September or October where we could actually see insects in real time in nature. And then we could revisit it in May if we needed to as a review. But then we also have in March and April, we have vernal pools where we see frogs and salamanders. So I would schedule amphibians in April so that we could experience the calling frogs in real time. And then because reptiles are often confused with amphibians, it's nice to put them close to each other. So they also start coming out of brumation in May or the end of April. So if you put reptiles immediately afterwards, then you'll see them coming out of their overwintering, and then your students can experience those in real time as well. And then since kindergarten study plants and their needs as well, it's nice to talk about those a couple different times. So we actually, in Michigan, we do a lot of maple syruping. And
mm.
so we talk about plants coming out of dormancy in March and hit on the maple syrup aspect. So kind of taking everything and placing it where it's appropriate in the school year. So that way they can have those authentic experiences. Yeah.
It's
And
just brilliant. But there's this big but I can
yes.
see that educators are resistant. And I actually work with many educators that are resistant. And because when you keep saying, oh, but it's a little bit harder, it takes a
Mhm.
little bit more time to set this up rather than, oh, we'll just kind of just feed them this information. And
Yeah.
it does take a little forethought. And so how do you manage that? How do you get to the other side of that? How do we get more educators to be thinking in this regard? Because again, like you said, the research is there
Yeah.
and it just, even you describing it just seems so luscious, like luscious learning. It just makes me excited to learn it because it's like, it just feels so natural as opposed to an educator just feeding this information. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the benefit to when I worked at the nature center is I was able to hold their hand through the whole process. So unfortunately, that's not the case for everyone. And if they're very passionate, they can make this happen on their own. But that partnership allowed me to be able to do it a little bit easier and to also convince people that it was worth their time when they were told they had to do it. So there's that aspect. But at the same time, there are plenty of people out there that are looking for this type of curriculum. You interview people all the time, Victoria, that are amazing and doing amazing things. And so it's kind of things are moving towards that, I think, especially with more states adopting the next generation science standards. They're looking for that 3D effect that the NGSS covers and having that more authentic experience and having phenomenon. So this actually speaks to the phenomena aspect of next generation science standards. Why do trees go to sleep? Well, we can find out in March because now they're waking back up. Well,
Yeah.
what did they not have during the winter time that they have now that they had in the fall? Why don't we do a study on it? So having those authentic and real-time experiences can help with that phenomena aspect of next generation science standards. And once you get once you get going with this and you see how excited your students actually are, even if you only just start with a small piece 1 year and do like a seasonal study, that's something else that kindergarten requires is they talk about weather. And so you could very easily take 1 week around the equinox or the solstice and do a seasonal study. Okay, what do we notice now that we didn't see before, right? And go through, on Monday, maybe you talk about what's going on with the plants. Tuesday, you talk about what you're seeing with the animals. Wednesday, you look at the clouds and see what's happening with the weather, and then break it all down on Thursday, right? What does this look like compared to the last one? Have an anchor chart that shows it, hang it up, do the next season and make a comparison, right? And so then you can start to see how those true, authentic experiences are providing real understanding in your students instead of just being able to speak back, oh, spring has rain and it has, okay, well, if they go out in the rain in spring, they're going to remember that.
Yeah, so true. And I think that's, as an educator, even as a parent and anybody that works with children, that's sort of that's the why of why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also when you are incorporating nature into curriculum and you see the response of the children, it's a little addictive. It's like, yes, well, okay, this is what I'm working towards. It's sort of, again, like you said earlier, it's just a no-brainer. I keep saying it's the answer. It's just open the door. It's so simple. Absolutely. So you are really working towards inspiring more educators in this path. And can you tell us a little bit about that and how you're not necessarily at the Nature Center currently? Can you tell us a little bit about where your journey's going?
Yeah. So living through COVID, the pandemic, I had a child right before that happened. And so then it just kind of gave me a different perspective on things. So I decided I wanted to stay home. I spent a little more time at the Nature Center making sure everything was all packaged up nicely. And then I've been staying home with him since. But I wanted to continue trying to get the word out. So since my leave from the Nature Center, I still go back. I still spend a lot of time there and I'm still in communication with everybody. And so we, feed off each other. I give them ideas. They give me ideas, that sort of thing. But I have a blog going so that I'm trying to share step-by-step instructions, if you will, or step-by-step opportunities to be able to ease your way into it. Because after doing that for 10 years and coaching teachers for 10 years, honestly, it takes about 3 years to actually feel comfortable. The first year, you're spending all this time learning how to do the management outside and not being afraid of being outside. So I actually just did an episode about the safety of being outside and teaching outside, because that was one of the biggest barriers was, well, my students are going to get lost or my students are going to get hurt. But the reality is they're just as likely to get hurt inside as they are outside, as long as they know the expectations and the rules. And so trying to get over some of these barriers, I just started the podcast so that I could have 2 avenues to be able to reach people that this is not impossible. It's more than doable, and it's very beneficial, right? So trying to get the word out continuously in a few different forms and just try to take all that knowledge that I've had and all that experience and be able to share it wider now than what I could at the Nature Center. Because at the Nature Center, we did amazing work. They're still doing amazing work, but it's really finite, right? So it's that one district. And then we started to reach a little bit more into some other districts, but it's not really taking that message and spreading it super far. So I'm hoping that by stepping away from the Nature Center and starting the blog and starting the podcast, that I can actually take that message and spread it farther to more people, that you can do this, that it is beneficial, and that it is totally worth your time and effort, right? There's a lot of resistance from elementary teachers to teaching science because they don't think they can. But I want them to know that they can. They can master the curriculum. They can teach it in a way that their students will understand, and that actually it will teach that critical thinking that they're missing right now. It's missing from many students because they have a worksheet that they have to fill out, but that's not giving them that experience to try things, to use critical thinking skills and develop observation and wonder and all of the things that nature can provide them. And then also even if they don't use the nature aspect of it, just getting outside and using that for authentic experiences, that alone will help build those same skills. And so I'm hoping that through my different avenues that I can help pass that message along. Even if people only put it in once or twice a month, that's more. And then they'll feel more comfortable. And then maybe they'll do more, see the benefits, take those baby steps to help progress into more outdoor education.
Yeah, I mean, we would not have met if you didn't have your podcast. So it's just exciting to have these conversations and elevate this conversation to all educators and parents. But I do see these barriers and I think it's a mindset thing. I think it's like what you said in terms of, well, teachers don't see themselves as science teachers. And so there's a resistance just in teaching that subject matter. And I'm thinking, wow, then you put nature on top of that. That's just like piling up anxiety and overwhelm, which is not what we want. And it actually, when you go outside, it just does the opposite. It's calming and all the research that goes with that. But I love the fact that we're talking because I talk to a lot of early childhood educators. We're actually going to have someone that works with high schoolers, but I love that you are targeting elementary school piece. And so I would love any other insight just about that area of elementary school teachers and science, anything else that you can lead us into that you would suggest for teachers and or even parents. I think there's even a lot of homeschool parents out there that should hear this message and get out. And I just think even the subject matter that you're talking about is so key, and meeting those standards and how to do that and all that goes with it.
Yeah, for sure. Elementary students are actually almost the perfect age for this because they still have a lot of that imaginative play that they like to take on. Like, a lot of our preschoolers, we talk about that with preschool. But even my almost fifth grader, she just graduated fourth grade, right? She's going into fifth grade. She will still go outside and play in the mud kitchen. So almost the entire elementary aged set of students can take a stick and make it into a spoon, or it can be a wand, or it can be whatever. And they can take all of that and they learn through play in such a rich way that it's actually, I found, that's a great way to test what they've learned. So as animal needs, as an example, I know that I used that earlier, you could teach about that they need shelter, they need food, they need water, they need space. Well, give them a small plastic animal, have them go out in the woods and provide that small plastic animal with all the things that they need. And then you walk around and you see where they're at. So I see that you built it a shelter. What else did you give it? Oh, right here's a hole and I can collect rainwater, and then here's some leaves for its food, and I made sure that nobody's right on top of it. And so you can actually use a lot of play-based opportunities as a way to understand where your students are with the curriculum. And so that was one thing when I was coaching, is teachers were worried that I wasn't giving them a test. I didn't hand over a paper test that said, here, after you've done this many lessons, make sure you give them this test, right? And then you'll find out where they are. They would always ask me, how am I supposed to know where my students are? And I'd say, well, let's play this game. We did a lot of gamification where I would provide them directions to gamify some sort of aspect. And so then they could also see through that gaming their understanding of the curriculum, or how they were starting to progress through it, or if it was an introduction, that gamification was super helpful. And they would be able to use that, the free play exploration, to be able to see where their students were. They just needed kind of talked through it. But elementary age students are the perfect kiddos to be outside because they can do whatever you want them to do with everything that's available to them, right? They've got the imaginative play. They got the love for the teachers. They're like, oh, you want us to go outside? Yeah, let's do it. No problems here, right? They're not too cool for a coat. They're not too cool for boots, You don't really have that. Well, around fifth grade, they start to get a little bit more, but then natural consequences, right? If they're cold, it's their own fault.
Right.
But
there is a resistance among the adults that whether we have to meet these standards, and there's this a lot of elementary school, just that they're too programmed, going here and there and everywhere. So yet so that's why I think a lot of people think, oh, this outdoor classroom stuff, it's really good for preschool. And then, it should stop. And it sort of tends to stop in that middle, it's not even middle, it's elementary. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. I think another thing is they're, again, like you said, they're back and forth and they're so scheduled that I think teachers worry about the time aspect of it. So if you manage it correctly at the forefront of the school year, there's a lot of time that goes into it. You have to teach them routines of going to the bathroom before you go outside, putting your coat on, putting your boots on, that sort of thing. So there's the worry that there's not going to be enough time. But the thing is those experiences outside are so impactful and so rich. They don't need to be super, super long. So you may take 15 minutes to get dressed, but your lesson only needs to be 20 to 30 minutes outside, especially in the wintertime when you have more gear. They get cold a little bit easier. So the time aspect at the forefront of the lesson is a little bit longer, but those experiences are so rich and they create so many memories that their recall is going to be a lot better than if they were sitting in the classroom and like working through a worksheet or something. So the time aspect, I think, is a barrier. The
Yeah.
safety aspect is a barrier. They're worried that maybe they don't know what poison ivy looks like and they're going to tromp their students through some poison ivy or something. But you can easily learn that, right? And we can work through all those safety things with classroom management. Another thing that I noticed that was a big concern with elementary teachers is that they didn't know everything about nature. And spoiler alert, spoiler
So
alert, I worked at the Nature Center for 10 years and I still have no idea about probably 9/10 of nature because it's so vast and diverse. Nobody can know everything. But the wonderful thing is you tell your student, I don't know, let's find out together, right? And that
you said that.
yes, yes. That was one thing that always concerned the teachers that I worked with, but I don't know everything either, right? So instead, let's pull out a field guide or let's use the Seek app on my phone to be able to try to identify what it is. And then we can go deeper into it when we get back in the classroom, or I can bring field guides with me, knowing that we're probably going to run into this or run into that. And then there's also plenty of people that you can reach out to. If you have a local nature center, they love to help with these sorts of things. You can talk to them. But honestly, admitting to your student that you don't know something is actually a very powerful thing that you can do because your students think you know everything. And if you admit, I don't know about this, but we can figure it out. We can learn together. That is going to be a huge turning point for your students. And it'll give them permission to not know everything. And it's okay for them to not master everything the first time, right? And to know that you also continue to be a learner throughout life. That's a really important lesson that I feel a lot of elementary students don't get because they see those teachers as all-knowing. But the reality is we're humans and we are continuing to learn as well. And nature is the perfect opportunity to share that message with your students and to
Yeah.
be vulnerable, right? They need to know that you're human and they need to know it's okay to be continuously learning, right? So I think that was another barrier that I found with teachers is that they wanted to know everything. So they couldn't go outside because they didn't know everything. Well, none of us know everything.
So then you never go outside, right?
Exactly, exactly.
You become paralyzed. But there's also a saying, which I like to tell educators, is to really practice saying, how did you fail today? Because there's research in failure and that we don't want to, and we're not teaching children how to fail or fall down, or there's this expectation, this sort of hidden expectation that everything has to be perfect before we do it. And that you spoke to that so beautifully in terms of just even having the knowledge to go out about nature or birds or any specific topic. There are people out there that are experts but we don't have to be experts to go out. I love that you spoke on that. I love that you also spoke on time because I also hear that so much. Like we just don't have time. We don't have time. We don't have time. I only have the kids for this amount of time. We have to cover so much. So time is such a huge element as well. But I think it is about creating these rituals and practices that then it becomes the kids are actually taking themselves out and you are actually just becoming the facilitator. So if we can teach them some key things so they can act independently of us, then it becomes just a need that this is just what we do. We just go outside. So it's brilliant. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would like to share? I could talk to you for hours. Anything else that I may have missed?
I think one more barrier that I noticed with teachers is they were worried that when we went outside that they would automatically assume it was recess time. And
Mm,
so they were really concerned about making sure that it was very separate from the recess time. So if you give it a certain name, like it's nature time was our go-to, or it could be exploration time or what have you. But if you designate it as a different time and then share your expectations with them, but then put it on them, say, how should we behave when we're learning outside? What does that look like? And have them give you examples so that when you go outside, if you notice that they're trying to run to the playground or something, you could
yeah.
say, oh, hold on a second. What did we say about how it looked to learn outside? And then they'd be like, oh, well, we stay together as a group. Did we decide we were going to go over to the playground right now? Oh, no, we're going over to the woods. Okay, well, then we're all going to move together to the woods because it's learning time and not recess time. And I actually had a teacher where we were trying to pick, we had volunteers that would come in and they would help build stump circles for them for meeting spaces. And so we were looking at and scoping out different locations for her stump circle. We had one per classroom, and she could see the playground from her location. And she was very, very concerned. She was like, I don't think they can manage it. This was her first year trying to teach with nature. She's like, I don't think they can do it. And I said, I promise you, we can make it work. And they won't even notice recess is happening. The first couple weeks, they noticed recess was happening. But after that, they were zoned in because they got into the habit and the routine that we're going to be learning outside. We're going to be starting in this space. And there may be other kids outside, but that's not my concern. Right now, I'm focused on my learning time outside. So it does take some time, but that's the same case for when you're transitioning at the beginning of the school year, walking your students down the hallway, right? They're kind of all over the place. But once they take that time and they get that routine down, then they're zoned in, they know the expectations, and they manage those expectations. The same thing happens outside. All the teaching skills that teachers have for inside can transition outside perfectly. You just have to think about it the same way. So it's not this whole other thing. It's not this whole other thing that we're trying to add on top that you need to learn more skills for. If you take the management that you use inside, and crossover is beautiful. If you can use similar calls to be able to get them to come back to you, or attention getters, use those same ones outside. That'll connect it back to learning, right? It'll connect it back to inside. And if you use the same expectation, like if they walk in from a special and you have them sit on a rug, okay, when you go outside, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to sit at these benches or under this, at these picnic tables, what have you. If you use similar routines and expectations, especially kindergarten, first and second grade, those early childhood learners, then it's going to make that transition easier. And those students will understand the expectations and they will rise to those expectations. And one other thing that I've noticed a lot is when you take students outside, the students that struggle sitting in their seat, those are going to end up being your leaders. And that's one thing that I noticed has really convinced a lot of teachers is that they found a way to give those students an opportunity to shine, because otherwise they tend to end up in trouble in the classroom because their bodies are so busy, right? Elementary students, they can't sit as long as we want them to in the classroom. So by going outside and having the expectation to go outside, those students know they'll get their opportunity to move their body. And so those students end up being your leaders. And they end up showing other students how to do things that they necessarily wouldn't have felt comfortable with because they're the master of their bodies or they're the master of exploration or what have you. And it's giving different opportunities to different students as well. And so I know that I'm a huge proponent for outdoor education because it hits some of those students that struggle and it gives them an opportunity to really show everybody their stuff. So
That is beautiful. You said that so eloquently and so well that I love. It's just fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our community, where we can find you? Anything else that I again may have missed?
yeah, it was really fun. Thank you for having me on. I also could talk for hours about this. So if anybody has questions or, they want to hear more about creating scope and sequence and that sort of thing, because I know I have a lot of the nature background from my time at the Nature Center and also having an integrated science major. Not everybody has that.
Yeah.
So taking what's happening in nature and trying to coordinate it with your science. It may not be the easiest thing for everybody, but I'm just a click away. So you can email me at victoria@naturallyteaching.com, or I'm on Instagram and Facebook at naturally.teaching. And then my podcast is Naturally Teaching Elementary Science. And so I only have a few episodes so far, but I'm going to have Victoria on soon. So that'll be great. And so I can be found in all those different locations, and I am trying to reach as many people as possible. So questions I would love to have come my way, and I'd be happy to help. So
I'm feeling so grateful for your work and how eloquently you can speak about just how important the elementary science is, just everything elementary, and then getting our teachers and educators and parents outdoors and connecting that with nature and the importance of that. And you speak so well. And so I'm hoping that there are folks in our community that do reach out to you. It's specifically in the need of looking at elementary education and nature. And I highly recommend, and I love your name.
No bias, right? No bias.
No bias. No bias. I want to thank you for your time, and again, so grateful for all the work that you're putting out in the world. And I love that we are elevating these conversations so we can get even more people and educators, parents, anybody that's connected with children, just all of us reconnected with nature and spending more time in nature, because again, all the research is saying that all the benefits completely override spending time indoors in front of screens. So thank you again for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So if you like this podcast and you're getting something out of it, if it feels good and you walk away going, the day feels brighter and I want to go outside, then I want you to tell your fellow educators, parents, and friends about it. I want everyone to feel this awesome about getting outdoors and all the possibilities for playful learning with children when you get out there. So if you are talking about outdoor classrooms and you like talking about outdoor classrooms and teaching outdoors and all the different possibilities, subscribe to us and leave a review. We would love to have you. Go to our Outdoor Classrooms Facebook page, in our group, our Instagram pages, and tell us what your outdoor classroom challenges are. Want to dig deeper? Check out our Outdoor Classroom Circle membership community. It's like no other. Tell your fellow educators and let's start a little revolution about outdoor classrooms. When every child in every school has access to an outdoor classroom and learning gardens, then we will have more beauty in this world. Let's get creative and bring more joy into our teaching out.